Hey guys, it's Techno Freak here, and welcome to episode 42 of my custom story creation tutorial for Amnesia Rebirth. And today we're going to be continuing on with animations. We're going to script a little bit of a little cutscene here where a ghoul kind of busts down the door here, and then we kind of fall backwards and then start running away. And that's what I want to script today. So I'm going to show you guys that whole process. It's more of just putting a lot of the things we've learned together into one thing, rather than teaching you anything new necessarily. But I'll be talking about all the code and related videos that we might need to talk about this kind of stuff. So with that, let's go ahead and get started. So first thing I want to show you guys, I'm here in the game. I want to show you guys what we worked on last time and just kind of point out a few things before we start. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to walk up to this door here, and I'm going to start the cutscene here. I'm going to fall back and everything, and I want you guys to notice something when the cutscene is over here. When the cutscene's over here, we're going to zip back to where we originally started the cutscene. Generally, this doesn't happen with cutscenes. This animation that we're using specifically is not meant to actually have like an end where you stand back up or anything like that. It's actually a perma-fail. So the position you get warped back to is actually the original place the animation started. Another animation where like maybe you get like grabbed or thrown or something, you'd actually stand right back up where you fell. But this animation doesn't have that, and you just get zipped back. And I'm going to show that again, but I'm going to show you guys another way we can kind of troubleshoot animations and cutscenes when we're working with them. I'm going to go ahead and hit F5 here to restart my level. And I'm going to go ahead and go back over to the door here. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and step into our cutscene area that we have. And I'm going to press F7. And you'll see what that does when I hit it. So I'll go ahead and do that. I'll hit F7 here, and you can see now we're in like a free cam, in a spectator mode kind of camera. We can actually see the player's body and everything here. So that way we can see the animations that are playing and everything. So we can do that one more time just to see it one more time. But pretty much if we hit F7 again, you can just kind of like free roam the camera and kind of look around the map live. We'll go ahead and hit F7 here and come back and step into this area again. We'll just see the cutscene one more time. So it's just, you know, Tassie falling and then crawling on the floor. That's the animation we're using here. And this is going to help us when we're troubleshooting your animations, just kind of figuring out exactly how we want things. So with that, let's go ahead and go to our CodeLight application now and start talking about what we're going to be working with today. So one main thing we're going to be working with today are sequences. If you haven't seen the video on sequences, go ahead and check that one out. It's definitely an important one for scripting more complex things that require timings and stuff. So I would encourage you guys to go check that one out if you haven't. If you haven't, it's okay. We'll still go over it, but I won't cover too much detail about the sequences itself. So that's the first thing we're going to do here. Let's go ahead and kind of get our outline here for our sequence, so we can start scripting what we want here today. And that's, you know, the ghoul breaking down the door and the player kind of falling backwards and stuff. So what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and space a new line here. And what we're going to do is we're going to type in C sequence states data. And we're going to say MSEQ. And we're going to say underscore door break. And we're going to go ahead and close this. So we're creating the global variable that kind of stores our sequence data here. We're calling it mSequence door break. This part before doesn't really matter. Doesn't really matter. You got to keep that. You can keep this kind of consistent. This part you can change to be more relevant to whatever we're going to do. I'm calling it door break because it just kind of makes more sense. Or, you know, we could call it like door scare or something like that. I'm just going to say door break here. And then we'll go ahead and make a couple new lines here. Now we're going to make the sequence function here. So we're going to say void, and then we're going to say seq underscore, and now our name for the sequence. I'm calling it door break. So I'm going to go ahead and stick with that. We'll go ahead and close parentheses here and open up curly braces. And you have to make sure this is identical. You want to put in const constant, and we're going to say t string. And then we're going to say and in as timer. And that has to be identical, so make sure you put that exactly the way it is there. And now our sequence function is pretty much created here, but we want to put a few things in here first. So we're going to say sequence. We're going to do sequence going to say underscore begin. And now we want to go ahead and put the name of our sequence. That's going to be the same function here. So we're going to say, we're just going to go ahead and copy this here. We're going to paste this in here. And we're going to do comma space. And now we need our global sequence state data that we made right here. So we're going to go ahead and copy that. This is where the sequence is going to store its data. So we got to specify it as such. And now we'll go ahead and hit enter twice here. And we're going to put a sequence underscore end here, sequence underscore end, and we'll go ahead and close that out with a semicolon there. And then now we have it pretty much written out here. Now we want to make sure we call it from our trigger area. Just to cover this trigger area really quickly, we have this big area here called trigger door scare, and we have a collide callback so that when the player enters this area here, we call the function onCollide player trigger door scare here, and that's this one right here. That's why I put the sequence right below it. You don't have to put it right below it, but it kind of helps keep things like next to each other so that we know what we're working with. And for demonstration purposes for you guys, I want to make sure it's like right there for you guys as well to see. So that's this right here, and we're checking to see if all state is equal to 1, which means that the player just entered the area. For anything else, if the player leaves or anything else, we don't really care what happens. We just return false. And we return false because we want the trigger area to be removed once the player steps in here. So that'll take care of that. And with that, we can go ahead and put in our sequence here. So we want to go ahead and start our sequence of events. Pretty much, we're going to start a sequence of events where the player, falls back, the ghoul breaks the door, and we kind of like turn around and we kind of get up and start, and then ideally start running. So we're gonna put the name of our function that's right here, because we're gonna start our sequence. So we're gonna say seq underscore door break, and then we're not gonna pass in any timers. So we're just gonna put 2 quotations here and then close it out with a semicolon here. And that will start our sequence right here once the player enters this trigger area. So now this, we want to move it into our sequence. This is what we were working on last time and stuff. So we're going to put this into our sequence. So let's go ahead and put an if in our sequence here. And we're going to do, and I'll explain this in a moment, we're going to do sequence. We're going to do sequence. We're going to say do step and wait. So we're going to do whatever's inside of this if statement and then wait a set amount of time. I'm going to put 3.6f, and I'll explain why I'm going to use that much time in a moment. But pretty much we're going to do what's in here, and we're going to wait 3.6 seconds before we continue on inside of our sequence. So let's go ahead and grab our function here, and we'll cut it out of here, and then we'll paste it here. So it's going to play in here, and what we want to do now is let's go ahead and test it to make sure everything's working, and I'll explain why we do this 3.6 here. So let's go ahead and open up our game right here. I'll hit F5 here to have my game reset here, and we're going to go ahead and just make sure everything should work identical to before. Just making sure we didn't do anything different. We're just running this code through a sequence now. Okay, so now we can see that it works and everything. So the reason why I use 3.6f. So what I want to do is I want to start a animation where the player stands up after they fall down. The thing is that we are using a animation where the player falls back, but then she like looks at her hands. And she's supposed to normally perma-fail in this animation here, right here. So she turns around and then she looks at her hands, and then she's supposed to like perma-fail. But we don't want this part right here where she looks at her hands like she's perma-failing. We want it to get right up and start running, because the ghoul's right here. Because we're not really using we're using whatever animations we want to use, and we're going to make it work however we want to make it work. So from the moment I step in here to her crawling back to about right here is where I cut it, and where I want to cut this animation and start the stand-up animation. And pretty much you can get a timer as soon as you step in this area, start your timer, and as soon as you want to stop your animation, go ahead and hit stop on that timer of yours, and then it will tell us pretty much how much where we're going to cut the animation. And that for me here is about 3.6 seconds. So that's what I'm using for our code light thing here. We at 3.6 seconds after we play this animation, we want to go ahead and start the stand up animation and kind of cancel this play cutscene at entity animation. So that's why we do 3.6. And now let me show you guys which stand-up animation I kind of want to use here. So I'm going to open up the model editor here. I have it open with the player.ent file. That's inside of this path right here: entities, character, player body. We've shown that in the first episode of the animations episode in part 1. So make sure you check that out if you haven't. And what we're going to do is we're going to click the gears here. We're going to go to edit animations. And here's all of the animations for this player body here. And the one I want to show you guys is the full and get. And we'll just hit enter there and get up quickly here. Of course, we want to get up quickly, and we'll play it just so you guys can see what it kind of looks like. Kind of looks funky because it's kind of just following the player's camera. That's why it looks kind of strange. But it looks perfectly fine from a cutscene perspective. With her hands on the floor and getting up and everything like that. So that's what we're going to be using here. And again, we want to cut this animation short, 3.6 seconds in, and then play this cutscene animation. So let's go ahead and move on to doing that now. So we're going to say if, and we're going to do curly braces here. So now after this finishes in 3.6 seconds, this next if statement will run. And we're going to do sequence. We're going to do sequence. And we're gonna do step and wait, and I'm gonna do this step and wait 0.4 seconds, and there's a reason for that, and I'll explain that a little bit later in the video. But you can just do, if you don't have anything else to do, you can do sequence and then do step and continue, like this, do step and continue. But I want to wait 0.4 seconds, and that'll make more sense later in the video. So we're going to do that, and then we want to go ahead and play the cutscene animation of Tassie falling or getting up from being on the ground. So that's what we're going to do. So we're going to say player body, and we're going to say underscore, and we're going to say play cutscene animation. And we don't want to do cutscene at entity. We want to do the play animation because we want to play it pretty much where the player is. Remember, in the first episode of animations, I kind of explained that this one's more for when you want to play animation right where the player is. Although you can use them kind of interchangeably if you really want. But we're going to be using this one because it's a little simpler. And now first we're going to put in the name of the animation. That's going to be full and get up quickly. That's the name of the animation. So we're gonna go ahead and do comma space now. And now for the next value here, we're gonna put false, and I believe this is whether you want it to loop here. I think this is wrong here. This actually isn't the player body animation. I don't know why that's coming up like that. Or actually, you know what it is? It's because I'm using the wrong animation here. I'm using play animation rather than play cutscene animation. So let me actually just backtrack this a little bit here. Make sure we're using the right one. So it's play cutscene animation. So we want to do this one right here. And now we're going to go ahead and put in that name there, full and get up quickly. And then this is going to be loop, and we don't want it to loop. We only want it to play once, so we're going to say false. Next, we want to specify a fade in time. We'll fade the animation in like 0.3 seconds. Sometimes it's good to put a little like fade in time just so it doesn't like snap to it right away. But 0.3 probably works fine. And then for the string in now here, this is the completed callback. We're not going to be using a completed callback here, so we're just going to leave that blank. We'll just put quotation marks around it. Speed, this is going to be how quickly we want to play the animation. We're going to say 1.0f. We're going to play it at normal speed. Next is the relative time position. Now this is actually important. The animation that we're using where like Tassie falls and gets up quickly, the beginning part of that animation is Tassie like falling and then getting up. We kind of want to cut out that part of the animation. So we're going to start it at 0.3f. That's about 30% into the animation. That it's between 0 and 1. So we're starting at 30% into the animation, the animation's like sequence. So that way we're skipping the part where Tassie falls and she's just pretty much getting up from the ground instead. And that's why we're doing 0.3 there. Of course, you got to test it yourself, see what works best for that. But 0.3 is what works in this case. But you can always play around with it when you're testing your own animations and stuff. So next, we want to put true here. This is the global option, I believe, and we want to set that to be true. Next, we're gonna go ahead and we're actually gonna skip the next ones for a moment because I kind of want to show you guys what happens just with this info, with this function here, what we have written so far. So we didn't specify a couple of other things, and that is the position where we want the player and the yaw that we want the player, the angle that we want the player to be looking at. And we're gonna go ahead and just kind of play with this just to kind of see what it looks like. So let's go ahead and go back into the game here. Hit F5 to restart our game here. And now let's go ahead and head back to here, and we're gonna go ahead and step into it. And I just want you guys to kind of acknowledge what goes on here. So we look down, we kind of get teleported, and yeah, it's kind of a bit funky here. So let's go ahead and restart it. And this is where seeing things in the spectator view actually kind of helps here. So we're gonna go ahead and step in here and kind of see what's going on here. So go ahead and hit F7 here. You can see the player falls, and then she kind of gets zipped around over here to do the get up animation and stuff. So we definitely don't want that. We're gonna need to specify a position and an angle that we want the player to be looking at. So that's what we're gonna do next. We're gonna specify those things. So remember, normally you wouldn't have to even set a position because it would just use the position that you have before. Remember what I said about that animation, the permafail ghoul animation that we're using. It's actually not. It actually doesn't have like a final destination in the cutscene programmed in, or I think it's related to the actual animation, the FBX file. There's no ending location for it, so it kind of just zips back to the original position where you started the animation. So what we want to do is we want to specify the location we want this animation to play, the get up animation. So that's what we're going to do. So we're going to do some clever stuff here to kind of get us where we want. So if we try to just say, okay, use player's current position, it's going to kind of not work properly because the player, when the animation plays, it still thinks that the player is back in front of the door where the animation started. So we're not going to get the right position if we just specify the location of the player. So we actually want to specify the position we want to specify is actually exactly where the player's camera is. So, the player's on the floor and looking down at her hands after she turned around and started crawling. That's exactly where the position we want. So there's actually a way we can do that. We can actually get the position of the player's camera rather than their current position. So that's what we're going to do. So the way we do that, it's actually pretty simple. We're going to say C vector 3F here, and we're going to say camera POS for position, and we're naming it camera pulse, and we're making it a C vector variable. So this is our variable that we're creating. I name it this. You can name it whatever you want. I think it's just pretty straightforward, and it's going to be a C vector 3F, which is 3D coordinates. That's going to be the position of the player's camera. That's what we want. And to do that, we're going to go ahead and say player underscore get camera position, and we're going to go ahead and close that out. And that's it. This will give us the player's position as a C vector 3F. And just so you know, so if you want to know why I know that we get a C vector 3F, if you do get camera position, you'll see that it returns a C vector 3F here. So we know that the variable has to be a C vector 3F, and that's why we call it C vector 3F here. So those are our coordinates, or 3D coordinates that we got back. That'll indicate the exact position of the player's camera. So what we're going to do here in the next position here, in the next spot right here, we need to provide a location where we want to play the animation. So for that, what we're going to say is we're going to say C vector. You could technically say just say camera pause, and that works too. But the thing is, the camera's position is going to be low to the ground, which means the player's Y is going to be like really close to the ground, and we don't want that, or else the player will probably just fall through the floor. Actually, you know what? Let's try it. Let's see what it actually... I forget we can just do that. So let's go ahead and try it. Let's just... camera pause. Let's go ahead and hit F5 here and just kind of see what happens here, what kind of behavior we get. So we're going to fall back. We're going to turn around and just stop when she looks at her hands. And she zips, and yeah, so you can see it was actually the opposite. It was a lot higher up than lower down. So as you can see, we don't want that. We want the player zipping up high and then dropping down. We could play it back with here in like an F7 view. So let me do that, and let's kind of like turn around here, and you'll see the player kind of like go up and then fall down. So we definitely do not want that. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna set our own coordinates here, and we're gonna set our own coordinates here with the camera position, and then specify a specific Y value here. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna go ahead and do that. So we're gonna say, instead of camera pose here, we're gonna say C vector 3F. So we're indicating our own vector here. What we want the X to be. The X and the Z can actually be the same. What we're again interested in is the Y. So for there's going to be an XYZ coordinate here. So for the first one, we're going to say camera pose, and we're going to say dot X, and we're going to say comma space, and then we're going to say we want a Y here. I'll come back to this in a second. But for our Z, we're going to say camera pose dot Z. So that's our Z value. And now we want to specify what we want our Y value to be. So the Y value, we want it like really close to the ground. So we're just going to say 0.1 F. So we're just specifying exactly what that is. So it's going to be 0.1 F off of the ground. And we're using the camera's X position and the camera's Y position. So all of this should happen in the same place. So let's go ahead and just kind of check it out. Reset the story here and kind of see what that looks like. So let's go ahead and go back into our player here. And we'll see it in first person here. And we shouldn't be like dropping up from the sky. We should just kind of stand up right in place. And we just get up, and our camera does look off to the left. So this is where we want to change the angle. So when we get up, we were looking to the left here. We want it to look more in the direction of this door. So we want the ghoul to kind of bust down the door. We fall, we crawl, we get up, and we're looking in this direction, same direction that we kind of fell in here. So what we're going to do is we're going to set the yaw now. That's going to be the angle that the player is looking at when they're done. So we're going to say comma space, and I want to indicate the yaw. So we're actually just going to be a bit clever here. We're going to get wherever the player's yaw is, which is right there. You saw where the player was looking at when we stood up. We want to add 40 to that to get it kind of to the right side. Of course, I know it's 40 because I've already tested this beforehand. But if you didn't, you could just try in like increments of like 20 or 30 or 40, just until you get the right position that you want. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say C lux underscore get player, and we're going to say dot get character body. So we're getting the character's player body, and then we get the player's yaw. So we get his yaw. So we get the angle that the player is looking at, and then what we're going to do is we're going to add 40 to it. So we're going to make him look 40 degrees more to the right side. So we're going to say 40.0 F. And we're going to go ahead and hit save here. So now let's go ahead and see what that looks like. So we'll go ahead and reset. And we're just going to start the animation. And let's just see where the player is looking at after that. So they're going to fall. They're going to kind of turn around. Animation's going to start. And yep, right there, we're looking straight at the door. And again, you could just test it yourself. We start here, you could do plus 20. It's going to be like right here. Then add another 20 to do plus 40, and then now you're here. And you can kind of just mess around with it however you want until you get it exactly the way you want. That's exactly perfect for me, 40 right there. So we're not going to actually change it from there. That's perfect. And now we kind of have the raw layout here of what we're looking for. Although there is one more issue that we do have to talk about here, and that's this zipping kind of thing that happens when we're on the ground. So I told you the animation where the player falls and perma fails, it doesn't continue from the spot where it ended. So what ends up happening is we kind of end up zipping across the floor here, because the animation ends and then the game tries to put us back here, and then we teleport us to back here because we want the next animation to play here. So it's kind of just fighting with the animations. We're using an animation that's not really supposed to be used for combining with another animation. So what we're going to do is just kind of work with it. I don't really want to look for another animation that we're going to use, so we're going to kind of just work with it and deal with like that zipping that happens on the ground when we start the animation. So we'll play it one more time just so you can see. And we can actually play it in third person here, so you can kind of see. And you can see that she kind of like goes back here and then zips herself back over here. So it's hard to tell when you're in cutscene mode anyways, but what we're going to do is probably just kind of do a bit of a makeshift kind of thing and work with it. We're going to just go ahead and just fade the screen to black when she's looking down and just kind of fade it back. You can definitely do it a much more eloquent way than that, but that's kind of my lazy quick way of doing it, to not kind of take up too much time during the video here. So let's go ahead and talk about how we're going to do that. And that's where this whole 0.4 things comes in. So what we're going to do is, what I want to do is I want to fade out the players. I want to fade out the player screen to black and then fade it back in after that whole zipping thing happens. So what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead. We talked about this in the effects episode, so if you haven't checked that out, I would check it out. We also talked about sequences in that one too, so definitely check that one if you haven't. But not necessary. You can just copy along here. We're going to say effect underscore fade out, and we're going to fade out in 0.05 seconds. So the screen is going to fade out to black in about 5/100ths of a second, so 0.05 seconds. And then we want to go ahead and fade it back in. So that's what this whole 0.4 is for. So we're going to go ahead and do all this stuff. The player is going to fade out to black. The animation where she gets up is going to start. And then we're going to go ahead and fade the screen back in after this 0.4 seconds expires here. So we're going to put one more section down here. We're going to say if. And in this one, we don't have anything else to do after this. So we're just going to say sequence, do step, and continue. So we're just going to do this and continue. And that should be the end of the sequence. So we're going to say effect. And we're going to say fade in. So we're going to fade the screen back in. And we're going to fade it in over the course of 0.15 seconds here. And we'll go ahead and close it out with a semicolon here. So the way this should work, the screen will go ahead and fade out into black in 0.05 seconds. The animation sequence will start where the player gets up. The function here is gonna the if statement here is gonna wait 0.4 seconds before it moves on after running all of this, which gives us time for like the player to zip around and everything on the ground, and then we go ahead and just fade in the screen back in 0.15 seconds. So let's go ahead and check it out in game. And again, I messed around with this a lot beforehand, so I kind of know the numbers, but you can always kind of mess around with those numbers, see what works best for you. In my case, it's a bit more of a unique case because I'm using an animation that doesn't have a position that it ends at. But let's check it out now. Let's go ahead and do this. So we're gonna fall. Look at our hands. We should fade to black, and then get right up. And you see that? So you didn't see any of that zipping stuff. We kind of hid it behind like the black screen. Like I said, you can do that a bit more eloquently and do something else, do some other effects that's not that one. You can flash like that whole Amnesia Rebirth face right there when they zip, so you can't even tell. But that works for us. It's kind of quick and dirty, but it works. And now what we're going to do is the rest of the part of the sequence. So I think we got the whole sequence down where the player kind of falls backwards, crawls backwards, gets up, and then now this is where she's going to start running. So what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and start the whole thing with the ghoul now. So this is actually pretty straightforward, and we've kind of talked about this in pieces in previous episodes. So if you've seen the puzzles episode 1, this will be very helpful to you. That will be very helpful to you in this sequence here. So we're going to put a ghoul right behind the door here. So we're going to go ahead and look for ghoul here. So ghoul's under character and ghoul here. So we're going to go ahead and place them right here. Let's go ahead and rotate them here. So we'll rotate them like this, like that. Maybe we'll move them up one little bit there. Yeah, that place is good. And we don't want them to be active from the start, so we're going to go ahead and deactivate them. And let's go ahead and save our map now. So let's also give him a name actually. So let's call him Ghoul Storage here. Ghoul Storage, and that's his name now. So we can use that. So we'll put him right behind the door, and he's gonna serve to jump scare our player here. So let's go back to the Code Light application now that we have him placed behind the door. And what we're gonna do is when the sequence starts right in the beginning here, we want to set him active. So we'll go ahead and do that. We're going to say entity underscore set active, and this is Ghoul Storage, comma space, and then we're going to say true. So we do want him to be active, so we're going to set him to be true. So we're going to set him to be active here. That's why we put true, and then we start the whole cutscene here. Of course, we also want the door to break down. That's an important part of this whole sequence. We don't want him to just spawn behind the door. Although we could spawn him and then tell him to break the door, but we want it to be pretty instant. So we're going to use what we learned in the puzzles episode 1, and we're going to say prop underscore set health, and we're going to go ahead and set the door's health to 0. So that door is called door underscore 1. I'll show you guys in a moment. And we're going to say 0.0f is going to be its health after we run this function. So we want the door's health to be at 0. So we'll save that, and we will go ahead and open up our level editor so I'll show you the door. So this is the door right here, and that's called door underscore 1, just like I said. So with that, the door will break down open, and the ghoul will go ahead and spawn. So let's go ahead and launch up our game and kind of check it out here. So let's go ahead and refresh here. And let's see what happens now. Let's check out what happens here when we go to this door. We're going to do it. Boom. And you can see the ghoul grabs us, throws us. Definitely now we want. And of course, we still play our animations and stuff like that. We're kind of glitched here because we kind of stacked animations here. So we're kind of just stuck here. But we don't want the ghoul to throw us. So there's actually a function we can set that to. So we're going to say ghoul underscore. And we're going to set allow throw player. That's this one right here. And we want to go ahead and specify which ghoul it is that we don't want to allow to throw the player. So we're going to say ghoul underscore storage, because that was the name of our ghoul. And we're going to go ahead and set that to false. We don't want him to be able to throw the player. So we're going to say false. So ghoul storage, false, he can't throw the player. So let's go ahead and try it out again now. So let's go ahead and see what that looks like. So let's go ahead and go up to that door. See what happens now, and boom. So yep, so breaks, he's not throwing us, although you can see he did swing at us, and he's probably here just swinging at us. Yeah, so we don't want him to do that either. So what we're gonna do actually is a bit more trickery here. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna say ghoul underscore set can attack, and we're gonna set that to be him, ghoul storage. And then we're going to go ahead and do comma space, and we're going to say false. We don't want him to be able to attack here. So we're going to say false. So he can't attack, he can't throw, so he's pretty much just going to follow the player. And this actually works out perfectly. So let's go ahead and play it now. Let's see what it looks like. This is going to be the final version of this. Everything's done, everything I wanted to do here. So let's go ahead and see it. So let's hit F5 to refresh it. So, and I'll explain a bit better as to what's going on here and what you can do afterwards. So let's go ahead and step through. Breaks down. He steps out. We crawl. We turn around. And now this is where the player is going to hightail it out of here. Open the door. Run out of here. And, do everything he has to do. So what we did, we went ahead and we broke the door. We had the ghoul spawn and everything. We had disabled his throwing so he doesn't grab the player. We disabled his ability to attack. That doesn't mean he won't hunt, so he'll still hunt us. He just can't attack, so he'll just kind of like stand there sniffing at us pretty much. Actually, I can show you guys that here when we play it. So we step in and we go like that, and he's just gonna kind of keep chasing after us. Even though he can't attack us, he'll just keep chasing after us. That's exactly what we want in this case. We want him to come out and kind of walk up to us and everything. It looks pretty cool when we kind of like trigger this, and he kind of like steps up at us like he's coming at us. I think that looks pretty good. And at this point right here, what you can do is pretty much anything at this point. You probably want to give the player a chance to run away and everything. So what you can do is you can like turn off the ghoul senses or something like that for like 2 seconds, 3 seconds. You can include it in the sequence actually, since you already have the sequence written now. So actually I'll go back to code light just for the heck of it here. But yeah, this executes and everything. And then here, when the player fades in, you could do another do step and wait or something like that. And then you could say like, you know, ghoul, or it'd be agents. You say like agent set senses active, and you could disable that, you know, that ghoul's senses, so he can't actually hunt the player. He would just kind of end up standing there. So he would just end up standing there, and then what you could do is, if this was like a do step and wait here, let's say for example we had this here, do step and wait, and we do this, we fade it in, and let's say we want to give the player like 3 seconds to run away, so 3.0 F, and then we do another like if statement here, something like that, and this one could be a sequence, do step and continue here. And then you can go ahead and like re-enable the senses of the ghoul here. So you could do true here. And then you can re-enable this stuff up here too. If this stuff is the things you want, if you want them to be able to throw and stuff. So you put this down here and you can say true and true. And you know, this is kind of like rushing through, just kind of showing you guys what you could do after this point. So 3 seconds after, you know, the player screen fades in and everything like that. We set his senses active to be false. So we deactivate his senses. That way 3 seconds later, we reactivate it. We reactivate his throwing, we reactivate his attacking, and he can go ahead and hunt. And we talked about ghouls in multiple episodes, so you can use whatever functions there you want and have them start hunting the player at this point. So yeah, so this is just, again, an example. This is just something that you might want to do after you do something like this. I think this is pretty cool. It's pretty fun to do something like this. We still have more things about animations to talk about, but we might move on to a different topic in the coming episodes. Just because I want to cover some ground and other stuff. But there are still there's still interactive animations that we haven't talked about, and we haven't talked about like ghoul animations or agent animations or anything like that. So that's definitely something I want to touch upon in coming episodes, but we might put those on hold. I'm going to talk about some other topics in the next few episodes, but we'll come back to animations at some point. But hopefully this gets you started on scripting some of your own cutscenes in your game. Have fun. This is really fun to do, but it is a bit of work to have to script in and everything like that. You can see, you know, if you had multiple cutscenes in your game, you're going to need sequences like this for every set of cutscenes that you do in your game, especially if they're as complicated as this one, in the sense that you're stitching together multiple cutscenes and stuff. So with that, guys, I'm going to wrap it up there. I hope you guys enjoyed the episode. Definitely a fun one here. And I'll see you guys in the next one. Leave a like if you enjoyed the video. Leave a comment letting me know what you think. And subscribe if you're not already subscribed. Have a good one, guys. Bye.